Hello and welcome to another video, and today's important question is: Survival Hunter saved? In the 11.1 patch, Pack Leader is getting a full rework and a few talents changed for the spec where you will have to play differently. And is this enough to bring survival back on the menu? To be fair, for the majority of players, the only thing that matters and can save a spec will always be about how much damage that spec can do. That in the end will not be relevant to what talents you have, how cool it is to play, but really just how hard the tuning knob is turned all the way to God comp status. I will tell you a little secret that you can keep in mind when watching PTR and beta content, whether it is from us or other channels. Nobody knows jack shit about what specs will be good and meta. The most anyone can do is take an educated guess and hope those don't just get randomly nerfed. And if they do, those players have everything leveled and geared already and can hop on an ult in a second. Now, with that being said, survival does a lot of damage from all that I have tested. There are only a handful of specs that can probably beat it. And this is just to give you an idea, not the purpose of the video, and not to be taken too seriously, but maybe enough to keep you interested in the rest. Let's start with the Pack Leader rework, and the first thing I want to say is that it will probably change at least once or at least one talent. The second thing I want to say, and it feels out of order, is that the whole hero talent has changed 100%. A bunch of it is still bugged, in case you might be looking at the gameplay and having questions. Okay, so what does it do now? In short, it summons 3 beasts on rotation, similar to the Diabolus hero talent for Warlocks, and each beast does something different to empower your DPS. Wyvern goes first, and while it lasts, it buffs you and your pets by 10%, and with the Fury of the Wyvern talent, when your pet attacks, it increases that buff by 1% for a total of 10% max damage and brings it up all the way to 20% actual total damage bonus. Also, during it, casting wildfire bombs extends the duration of the buff. This, together with most of the hero talent, is sadly a bit passive, so I suspect you won't really change anything in your rotation, since regardless of the extension, you want to cast all of your bombs all the time anyway. Oh, and you can see the Wyvern soaring above you, by the way. The second beast is the Boar, which charges through your enemies 3 times, each time dealing slightly more damage than an explosive shot to your main target, and about as much as a wildfire bomb in AoE. For comparison, with the talent Hogstrider, the Boar will refresh your Mongoose Fury window, and each time it deals damage, you have a 25% chance to gain an additional stack of Mongoose Fury, while the actual Mongoose Bite strikes an additional target, the whole thing stacking up to 4 times. This is where things can change, since the cleave on Raptor Strike, which we will seem to apply, doesn't really matter in AoE outside applying Serpent Sting, since you are flooded with resources anyway, and you kind of want to delay casting Raptor Strike as much as possible. If this changes and has some legit interactions, maybe we can see Mongoose Bite being picked with some cool additional synergy. And lastly, we have the Bear that comes in and applies a large bleed on everyone. A bleed that does a bit more damage than merciless blows. Bear gets a bit more love, where to buff it, we have a choice no talent option. Ursine Fury makes the bleed ticks reduce the cooldown of Butchery or Flanking Strike. We'll get to that in a minute. Right now, we can talk about maybe the one of 2 problems I encountered while playing this hero talent, with a disclaimer that I could have been playing it wrong, but if that's the case, then I would have to read a guide or watch a video on it to be able to play it, which already makes this a failed design if people cannot just pick it up and understand what to do. There's just too much stuff going on in your rotation where you cannot realistically spend all your bomb charges, all your focus, not cap kill command, not keep Butchery on cooldown, not keep explosive shot on cooldown, not waste Fury of the Eagle cooldown, and not overcap bomb charges when pressing coordinated assault. This issue is reminiscent of the beta problems the spec had when it got reworked initially. This issue was also addressed and fixed by the time it became live and people could actually play it, so I am hoping it gets addressed again. Now, the other choice note is the talent I am most excited for, since it has the highest potential to introduce a different playstyle and bring back an old survival gameplay loop of spreading and detonating poisons, and that is envenomed fangs. If this becomes a relevant enough source of damage, you could see a playstyle for survival that focuses on spreading serpent sting in AoE via contagious reagents and setting it up so that when the bear spawns, it does some massive nature damage on top of its bleed. This would require you keeping track of when the beasts will be spawning and tap targeting, spamming Raptor Strike to put out serpent stings in AoE. If we can lean heavier into this build, maybe we can play more dot-centric playstyles revolving around bleeds and poisons, and not just have them passively exist without any thought. But that is wishful thinking right now. There are 2 more talents you will be interested in, since the rest are legit passive damage increases which are nice to have, but don't impact your rotation, gameplay or decision making of any kind. First of all, Shell Cover, a neat little cheat death-like mechanic where when you drop below 40% HP, you get a 10% damage reduction buff for 6 seconds with a 2-minute cooldown. Honestly, the way this works is very underwhelming, despite it being a good concept to offset some squishiness hunters usually have. 10% damage reduction assumes that after you dip below 40% HP, you will still be taking damage where the 10% reduction is going to be effective. And even if it is, the fact that you have no control over it and only happens every 2 minutes at the most makes it extremely unreliable and just there. It feels kind of bad to put a point in it and not actually feel it, as opposed to the choice node of slicked shoes and horsehair tether. The tether makes enemies stunned by binding shot also get grabbed to its center for a neat little grouping, while slicked shoes gives your disengage a removal of movement impairing effects. Good utility to have, albeit situational. The rest of it is just not really worth talking about, considering it really just is passive damage gains, and the abilities that it affects are abilities you will still be pressing in more or less the same priority order. The talent design is very safe and honestly very boring. It's good that they changed its value away from having 100% uptime on your target or you just lose the damage, but I honestly couldn't even tell you I was playing a hero talent from the beginning, since the only ones that could change what I was doing were either not working or not applying to my abilities. There is potential here, but this has to be addressed again before you can feel like Rexar. A few big changes to Sentinel though that make it much more interesting as an option came to Lunar Storm. First of all, I believe they increased the range of the circle so it covers more ground, and it now slowly chases its target, something Ravager has been doing for warriors for years. Very good change, especially when the pack or boss has to be repositioned by the tank. Another change is that now it can only proc once every 30 seconds instead of 15 seconds, but ends up doing more damage. Also a good change since it feels more impactful this time, and if you run a weak aura for it, you can control it a bit more in dungeons where you get more time to set up for the next pack and not feel forced to put up a second Lunar Storm on the same pack that's already dying. That also makes it feel worse if you misuse it, since you lose out on more damage than before. And now the survival talents that have changed, which are 4 in total. The philosophy behind the change was to reduce button bloat you had, so now Flanking Strike is a choice node with Butchery. The talent that gave it the cleave effect and buff to kill command is gone, so that now it will be the clear single target choice. To compensate for this, Merciless Blows will apply to Flanking Strike as well, making it leave a heavier bleed on your target. And instead of its position and subsequent upgrade, you have 2 new talents. Call the Herd makes Killshot increase the damage your and your pet's bleeds do to your target by 25% for 6 seconds. This has obvious synergy with Sikkim and all of the damage over time talents on the other side of the tree. Its upgrade is Born to Kill, which gives you an extra 5% chance to proc Death Blow up to a total of 20%, making kill command in single target your best friend, increasing the duration of Call the Herd by 2 seconds and the damage of Killshot by 25% for the duration of Call the Herd. Now, on paper, this sounds like some fucking kick-ass execute damage for raids if the tuning is right, since the only thing I see being worth sacrificing to get these talents are maybe sulfur-lined pockets and tactical advantage. But of course, better brains than me will do some math and tell us what's good once again. The tier set at the moment buffs Wildfire Bomb on its 2-piece, and it also procs randomly and gets consumed randomly, but the 4 set is where you might see some impact, since your kill command will do 200% damage and generate 3 stacks of Tip of the Spear whenever your winning streak buff from your 2 set gets to be deleted by your Wildfire Bomb. Yeah, deleted. The tier sets are weird next patch, don't worry about it. What this means is that unless you are tracking when this will happen, you will likely overgenerate Tips of the Spear. You will likely overgenerate Wildfire Bombs with Pack Leader anyway, so I expect some things to be addressed by the time the patch hits the live servers. Right now on the PTR, I tested both Pack Leader and Sentinel, with Sentinel being the clear winner with the current numbers. Pack Leader seems drastically undertuned, but that wouldn't be something new. In theory, Survival seems like it's getting more potential depth and difference in playstyles, where maybe we can swap from a bomb-centric build or an everything-centric build, which seems to be what we have today, to some more niche playstyles that can give some variety. Kind of like what Marksmanship has with its rework, and if you haven't seen it, you can check our video on it right here. The changes are actually looking really good, where Marksmanship seems to have really good tools for both raiding and dungeons that can make it easier to tune and potentially making it a solid pick for the new season.